The cabin is a cage made of her own choosing. A gilded cage, perhaps, if guilt can be made of pine logs and river stone in the thick, mossy silence of the deep woods, but a cage nonetheless. Sophia runs a hand over the cool window pane, her breath fogging the glass for a moment, before vanishing. Outside, the world is being washed clean. Rain falls in a solid, gray sheet, turning the forest floor into a churning soup of mud and fallen leaves. The wind howls a lonely, mournful song through the tops of the ancient firs, a sound she has come to know as the forest's own particular brand of sorrow. It suits her. Her reflection looks back at her from the darkened glass, a pale, haunted thing. And there, stark against the pallor of her skin, is the mark, the flaw, the stain. It blooms across the left side of her face, a sprawling, jagged continent of deep crimson and muted purple, starting at her temple, swallowing her cheekbone, and finally trickling down to the corner of her mouth. It feels tight today, a familiar phantom ache that comes with the cold and the damp. Her grandfather, the man who had built this cabin and left it to her, had called it her rose map, a beautiful lie meant to soften the edges of a harsh reality. Children had not been so kind. They'd called it a monster's kiss, a devil's brand. Men had been worse. They had simply looked away, all but one. One had looked directly at it, his eyes the color of molten gold holding nothing but cold, clinical disgust. King Adrian. Alpha of all alphas. The memory is a raw, festering thing. Even after 5 years, the great hall, choked with the scent of pine incense and nervous perfume. Hundreds of unmated she-wolves, dressed in their finest, paraded before him like prize heifers at a fair. Her turn had come. She had walked forward, her heart a frantic bird against her ribs, her hands clammy. She hadn't dared to hope for acceptance, only for a quiet, swift dismissal. She had received neither. He had stood from his throne, a towering figure of raw power and breathtaking beauty, and he had pointed, a single, elegant finger, extended towards her face. That, his voice had boomed, a rich baritone, laced with ice, is a blight, a weakness, a stain upon the purity of our people. No wolf of mine will bear such a mark of imperfection. Remove her. Humiliation had been a physical force, a hot wave that stole her breath and scorched her from the inside out. The whispers, the snickers, the averted gazes of those who had once been her friends. It had broken something deep inside her. Not her heart that had been broken long before, by a world that valued smooth, unblemished surfaces above all else but her will to try, so she had fled. She had taken her grandfather's legacy, this small, isolated cabin miles from any pack territory, and she had walled herself in. Here, the trees didn't judge. The river didn't whisper insults. Here, her reflection was the only condemnation she had to face, and she had grown numb to its power. Mostly, a sudden, violent crack of thunder shakes the very foundations of the cabin. The lights flicker once, twice, then die, plunging the room into the gloomy twilight of the storm. Sophia doesn't flinch. She is accustomed to the darkness. She feels her way to the hearth, her hands finding the familiar roughness of the stones. She'll build a fire. A fire is a companion. It breathes. It consumes. It offers warmth without asking for anything in return. As her fingers close around the box of matches on the mantelpiece, another sound cuts through the roar of the wind and rain. A thud, a heavy, wet, fleshy sound against her front door. She freezes, every muscle in her body tensing. Nothing comes to her door. Nothing ever comes to her door. Bears, yes, deer, sometimes. But they don't knock. This was the sound of a body hitting the wood. Her heart, so sluggish moments before, now kicks into a frantic, panicked rhythm against her ribs. Fight or flight. Her instincts, honed by years of solitude and a lifetime of being prey, scream flight, hide, be silent, be small, wait for it to go away. Then comes a second sound. It is not a growl. It is not a threat. It is a whimper, a tiny, high-pitched, desolate sound of pure misery. The sound of something very young and very afraid. It slices through her fear like a shard of glass, straight to the tender, bleeding part of her that remembers being small and afraid and utterly, hopelessly alone. Logic is a distant, tinny voice in her head. Danger. Lock the door. Go to the cellar. But compassion is a roar. It's the memory of every adult who looked away, every person who saw a child in pain and chose not to see. It is the vow she made to herself in the ashes of her public humiliation. She would never be like them. She would never turn her back on a creature in need. Her hand trembles as she reaches for the heavy iron bolt on the door. She is afraid. She is terrified. But the whimper comes again, weaker this time, and it shatters the last of her resolve. I will not be like them. She slides the bolt back. The click is deafening in the charged silence between gusts of wind. She takes a deep, shuddering breath, the air thick with the smell of ozone and wet earth, and she pulls the heavy wooden door inward. At first, she sees only a great, black, shapeless mass slumped on her porch, a shadow that has collapsed into itself. Rain plasters its thick fur to its body, revealing the shocking contours of bone and sinew beneath. It's enormous, bigger than any wolf she has ever seen. A bear, perhaps? No, the shape of the head is wrong. The powerful jaw, the long snout. It is a wolf, a monster of a wolf, and it is bleeding. Dark, viscous blood pools beneath it, mingling with the rainwater, staining the welcome mat her grandfather had woven. From reeds, a sickening, rusty brown. Deep, ragged gashes mar its flank and shoulder, injuries too severe to have come from any ordinary forest creature. This was a fight, a battle. Her eyes travel up the massive, still form, and her breath catches in her throat. Even in this state, matted with mud and blood, she recognizes the fur. It is the color of a starless midnight, with a faint, almost imperceptible sheen of silver. She has only ever seen a pelt like it once before. On him, fear, cold and absolute, seizes her. It can't be. It is impossible. He would never be here, so far from his gilded kingdom, broken and bleeding on the doorstep of the woman he so publicly destroyed. But then the tiny, whimpering sound comes again. From somewhere within the great wolf's shadow, the massive animal stirs. A bare tremor of movement, and its great head lifts a fraction of an inch. The jaw, impossibly gentle, opens. Tucked safely inside, sheltered from the storm, is a pup. It is so small, a trembling ball of dark fluff, its eyes barely open. It looks at her, its tiny whines punctuated by shivers, and in that moment, the identity of the dying wolf on her porch ceases to matter. The king, the monster, the source of her pain of it, dissolves in the face of the tiny, helpless creature he had been protecting. This isn't about him. It's about the pup. It's about the vow. Okay, she whispers the word, a puff of white in the frigid air. Her voice is rusty from disuse. Okay, come on. The great wolf's head sinks back to the porch, its energy spent. A low, guttural sound rumbles in its chestnut, a growl of aggression, but of utter exhaustion, and, she thinks, a plea. Its eyes, barely visible beneath a heavy brow, find hers. They are not molten gold now. They are dull, clouded with pain, but for a split second, a flicker of something she cannot name passes between them. Recognition, gratitude, desperation. She doesn't have time to decipher it. The pup is shivering violently now, its tiny body losing a battle against the cold. I'm not leaving you out here, she says, her voice gaining a sliver of strength. She is speaking to the pup, to herself, to the dying wolf, to the ghosts in the room. I'm not. Her mind races. She can't lift him. He must weigh more than 3 of her put together. Dragging him will only make his injuries worse. You have to help me, she says, crouching down, ignoring the cold rain soaking through the knees of her trousers. She looks directly at the wolf. You have to move. Just inside. Just over the threshold. For a long moment there is no response. Just the howl of the wind, and the drumming of the rain, and the frantic beating of her own heart. She thinks, he's dead. He died right here. Then, with a groan that seems to tear up from the very center of the earth, the massive wolf begins to move. It is an act of sheer, agonizing will. He pushes with his back legs, dragging his mauled front half forward, inch by painful inch. A fresh wave of blood flows from the wound on his shoulder, and a pained whine escapes his throat, but he doesn't stop. He is crawling for his pup. Crawling to her, Sophia scrambles backward, her heart constricting with a painful mixture of pity and awe. She holds the door open wider, her body trembling in concert with the storm. He collapses again as soon as his massive body is clear of the doorway, leaving a muddy, bloody trail across her clean-swept floor. The pup, jostled free, rolls onto the rug, a tiny, squeaking bundle of misery. She quickly shoves the heavy door closed, shutting out the storm's fury. She throws the bolt. The sudden silence is immense, broken only by the rasp of the wolf's breathing and the pup's soft cries. The cabin, her sanctuary, her fortress against the world, has been breached. And the world, in all its brutal, bleeding, and unexpectedly vulnerable glory, is now lying on her floor. Panic is a wild animal in her chest, clawing for release. What has she done? She has brought the embodiment of her own personal apocalypse into her home. The king, the Alpha King. If he lives, what will he do? Thank her? Or finish the job of destroying her he started 5 years ago? And if he dies here, in her cabin, his pack will hunt. They will find him. They will find her. Her eyes dart to the pup, which has managed to crawl its way over to the great wolf's still side, nosing at the bloody fur. Whimpering for a comfort its father is too broken to give. And just like that, the panic recedes, replaced by a grim, cold clarity. It doesn't matter. None of the what-ifs matter. What matters is this moment. A dying father, a freezing child, a storm outside, and her, the only one here to do anything about it. She moves. Years of solitude haven't made her helpless. They have made her self-reliant. First, warmth. She turns to the hearth, her hands now steady as she strikes a match. The flame catches on the kindling, hungry and bright. Soon, a small fire is crackling, casting flickering orange light across the terrible scene. Next, the pup. She finds an old woolen blanket, one of her grandfather's, smelling faintly of cedar and thyme. She gently scoops up the tiny creature. It's so light, barely a weight in her hands. It flinches at her touch, then seems to sense the warmth of her skin and presses closer, its whimpers quieting just a little. She wraps it loosely in the blanket and sets it on the hearth rug, as close to the fire as is safe. Now for the father. She approaches the great wolf, her fear a cold knot in her stomach, but she pushes it down. She needs to see how bad it is. She lights a few oil lamps, their steady glow pushing the shadows back. She kneels beside him, the smell of wet fur, blood, and something else, something wild and musky, and uniquely him filling her senses. His breathing is shallow, a rattling sound in his chest. His eyes are closed. The gashes are deep. She can see the pale gleam of bone in the worst of them. He needs stitches. He needs medicine she doesn't have. He needs a healer. She has hot water, soap, and her grandfather's old first aid kit. stocked with supplies for logging accidents. It will have to be enough. I'm going to clean you up, she murmurs, her voice soft. It's going to hurt. I'm sorry. She doesn't know if he can hear her, if he's even conscious, but she feels the need to say it. To give him a warning she was never given. She fetches a basin of warm water and a clean cloth. Her hands hesitate for a fraction of a second before they touch him. The fur is thick and coarse, caked with mud and blood. As she gently dabs at the edges of the wound on his shoulder, his entire body flinches. A low growl vibrates through his chest, a sound of pure instinctual agony. I know, she whispers, her heart aching for him, for this creature. She refuses to think of him as the king. Right now, he is just an animal in pain. I know. I'm sorry. Just hold still. To her astonishment, he does. The growl subsides, though his muscles remain rigid with tension. It is as if he understands, as if he is choosing to trust her. The thought is so foreign, so jarring, that she almost pulls her hand back. Trust. That is a word she erased from her vocabulary long ago. She works for what feels like hours, cleaning the dirt and grime from his wounds, her movements gentle and efficient. The water in the basin turns red, then a murky brown. She has to change it 3 times. She finds more injuries, deep claw marks on his back, a bite on his leg that looks infected. He was ambushed, outnumbered, and he fought to the last to protect his child. Her hands are stained with his blood. The fire crackles. The pup sleeps, twitching in its dreams. The storm rages on. Inside this small, fragile bubble of light and warmth, a strange, surreal truce has been declared. She has no needle fine enough or thread strong enough to stitch these wounds. All she can do is clean them and pack them with the antiseptic salve from her grandfather's kit. The salve smells sharply of pine resin and herbs. As she smooths it into the raw flesh, the wolf shudders, a long, deep tremor of pain, but he remains still. He lets her. Exhaustion settles deep into her bones. Her back aches. Her fingers are numb. She finishes with the last wound, pulling a clean, dry blanket over his back half, leaving the injuries on his shoulder and flank exposed to the air to heal. There is nothing more she can do. She sits back on her heels, the bloody rags and empty salve tin beside her. She looks at what she has done. She has invited her enemy into her home and tended his wounds. She has sheltered his child. She has willingly contaminated her sterile, safe world with his pain. She should feel terrified. She should be planning her escape. Instead, what she feels is a profound and weary sense of rightness. As if this, all of this, was a choice she had already made long ago. She looks at the jagged purple map on her own face, in the reflection of the dark window, a mark of imperfection, he had called it. A stain. She touches it gently. It doesn't feel like a stain tonight. It feels like a scar, and scars are proof of survival. She glances at the massive, scarred wolf on her floor. Maybe, just maybe, they have more in common than she ever could have imagined. The first few days pass in a blur of tense, quiet routine. A rhythm of survival. Sophia moves like a ghost through her own home, her every sense on high alert. She wakes with the first gray light of dawn, her first thought always a jolt of anxious awareness. He is here. The great wolf remains mostly still. A mountain of black fur and barely contained power in the center of her small living space. He has moved from the doorway to the hearthrug, displacing the pup, which now sleeps curled against his uninjured side. He sleeps, or seems to, for long stretches, his breathing the only sound in the room, a low, rhythmic rasp, but she knows he is not truly asleep. Sometimes, when she moves across the room, she will feel the weight of his gaze on her back. When she turns, his eyes will be open, just slits of dull gold in the shadows, watching her. He watches her stoke the fire, watches her knead bread, watches her read by the flickering light of the lamps. His watchfulness is not threatening. It is observant, assessing. The pup is another matter entirely. After the first day of exhausted sleep, he has awoken with the boundless, clumsy energy of the very young. Sophia, who has never been around a child, let alone a wolf pup, finds herself in the bewildering role of mother. She has no milk for him. She improvises, mashing up some cooked rabbit from her stores with warm water, creating a sloppy, unappetizing gruel. The pup, whom she has started calling Little One, in her mind, disagrees. He laps it up with frantic, noisy slurps, getting more on his face and paws than in his mouth. Caring for him becomes the focal point of her days, a welcome distraction from the unnerving presence of his father. She cleans him with a damp cloth, a task he endures with impatient wiggles. She carves him a small, smooth piece of wood to chew on, which he promptly ignores in favor of the leg of her favorite chair. She finds herself talking to him, her voice low and soft, filling the silence of the cabin. "No, you can't eat that," she'll murmur, gently prying the chair leg from his needle-sharp teeth. "That's older than both of us put together. Are you still hungry? You have a hollow leg, I think. Just like your father, probably." He's big enough to have 4 of them. She never speaks directly to the wolf. It feels too dangerous, too intimate, a bridge she is not ready to cross. But she knows he listens. She can feel it. His ears, even when he appears to be sleeping, will twitch in her direction when she speaks. One afternoon, while she is changing the dressing on the wolf's shoulder, she lets her guard down. The work is grim, the wound is deep, and though it is not festering a small miracle, she attributes to the potent herbal salviate, is healing with an unnatural slowness. It is as if some poison, some venom, is fighting against his body's ability to recover. Her fingers are gentle as she cleans the area. His skin is hot to the touch. "He really did a number on you, didn't he?" she whispers, almost to herself. "Whoever did this, they wanted you dead, not just beaten." She dabs a fresh layer of salve onto the angry red flesh. The wolf remains stoic, but a low groan escapes his throat, a sound of profound pain. "I know," she says, her own voice thick with an empathy that surprises her. "I know what it's like to be judged and found wanting, to be hurt for something you can't change." She straightens up, her hand hovering for a moment near her own face, near the birthmark hidden by the fall of her hair. "He called it a stain," she says, the words falling into the quiet room like stones. "Your king, Alpha Adrian, that's what he called this." She gestures to her cheek. A stain on the purity of the pack, in front of everyone. He didn't even have the decency to be cruel in private. She doesn't know why she is telling him this, pouring the salt of her deepest wound into the ear of her enemy. Maybe it's the isolation. Maybe it's because she looks at him, broken and bleeding, and for the first time she doesn't see a king. She sees a fellow outcast. "I bet they all thought I was pathetic," she continues, her voice gaining a bitter edge. "The ugly marked girl, running away to hide in the woods. But it's not so bad here. It's quiet. The trees don't care what my face looks like." She finishes her work, her movements jerky with remembered pain. As she turns to put her supplies away, she glances at him. His golden eyes are wide open, and they are fixed on her with a burning, terrible intensity. There is no dullness in them now. There is shock. There is agony. There is something that looks like dawning horror. And in those eyes, for the first time, she sees not an animal, but a person. A consciousness trapped within, listening to every word, understanding every nuance of her confession. A cold dread trickles down her spine. He knows. He knows that she knows who he is. And he has just heard the unfiltered, unvarnished truth of the pain he inflicted upon her. She backs away slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs, The fragile truce is shattered. The quiet routine is a lie. He is not just a wolf. He is the king, and he is awake. He tries to push himself up. A strangled, agonized sound tears from his throat as his injured shoulder gives way, and he collapses back onto the rug with a heavy thud. But his eyes never leave her face. They are filled with a desperate, silent apology that is more unnerving than any threat. For the next 2 days, the air in the cabin is thick with unspoken things. He doesn't try to get up again, but he doesn't sleep either. He just watches her, his gaze heavy with a sorrow so profound it makes her ache. He no longer hides that he is listening. When she speaks to the pup, his head turns slightly. When she moves about her chores, his eyes follow her every step. The intimacy of it is suffocating. She feels seen in a way she never has before, raw and exposed. He is seeing past the mark, past the hermit she has become, and into the broken places inside her. And she, in turn, is seeing past the king, past the alpha, and into the wounded creature beneath. On the 3rd day after her confession, something shifts. She is sitting by the fire, mending a tear in one of her shirts, the pup asleep on her lap, a warm, heavy weight. The Wolfadrian, she lets herself think his name now. A dangerous, fragile thing is, lying on the hearth, his great head resting on his paws. His breathing is still labored. He seems weaker today, not stronger. The fever is back in his skin, the poison in his wounds. Whatever it is winning. A wave of despair washes over her. She has done all she can. It isn't enough. He is going to die here, on her floor, frustrated and helpless. She sets the pup gently aside and goes to the wolf's side. She dips a cloth in cool water and lays it on his forehead. His skin is burning. "You can't die," she whispers, the words fierce. "You can't. What about him?" She glances at the sleeping pup. "He needs you. You fought so hard for him." The wolf's eyes open. They are clouded with fever, but they are focused on her. He lets out a soft, low whine, a sound of utter defeat. "Don't you dare give up," she says, her voice trembling. "You are the Alpha King. You're supposed to be the strongest of us all. Fight." He whines again, a pitiful sound from such a powerful creature. He nudges her hand with his nose, a weak, clumsy gesture. It is the first time he has initiated contact. His touch is hot, dry, and surprisingly soft. Her own hand, of its own volition, moves from his forehead to his broad, furry cheek. Her fingers sink into the thick, coarse fur. She hesitates, then lets her hand rest there, her thumb stroking gently just below his eye. It is a shocking, terrifyingly intimate gesture, touching him like this, touching the face of her tormentor, with a tenderness she hasn't shown anyone in years. He leans into her touch, a barely perceptible movement. A great, shuddering sigh escapes him, and for the first time since he arrived, his body seems to relax completely, surrendering to her touch. Fear is a distant echo. In its place, a strange, fierce protectiveness blooms in her chest, a sense of connection so powerful, it steals her breath. It feels right. Her hand on his face. It feels like coming home. What is happening to her? She stays like that for a long time, her hand on his face, her other hand resting on his heaving side, as if she can will her own strength into his failing body. The fire pops and crackles. The pup snores softly. The silence is no longer tense. It is filled with a deep, resonant hum of something new and fragile being born between them, a sign of the supernatural. She had dismissed it at first, chalking it up to the hardiness of his kind. But now, she knows better. His wounds, they heal in a way that defies nature. A gash that should have taken weeks to close, that should have festered without proper medicine, instead knits itself together with an impossible speed. One morning, she cleans a deep laceration on his flank, and the next, It is nothing more than a thin pink line, already covered in a fine down of new fur. It isn't her salves. It isn't her care. It is him. His body is waging a war against the poison, and when he has the strength, his vitality is a force of nature, but the poison is relentless. He has moments of clarity and strength, followed by bouts of fever and weakness that leave him trembling and slick with sweat. During these times, he seems to draw strength from her presence, from her touch. He will nudge her hand, a silent plea, until she rests it on his head or his side. The contact seems to soothe the fever, to ease the tremors. She is becoming his anchor. And, God help her, he is becoming hers. The quiet days in the cabin have become her entire world. The fear of who he is and what he did has been worn down by the sheer, grinding reality of caring for him. He is no longer the monster from her memory. He is Adrian, a wounded father, a silent, watchful patient. The warm, heavy weight against her legs as she sits by the fire. The pup, little one, is the bridge between them. He will tumble over his father's paws, nipping and yelping, and Adrian's golden eyes will soften with a paternal love so fierce it makes Sophia's chest ache. Then the pup will come to her, demanding to be petted or fed, and she will feel Adrian's gaze on her, a gaze filled with a gratitude so profound, it feels like a physical touch. They are a caricature of a family. A broken king, a rejected outcast, and an orphaned prince, all holed up in a tiny cabin, while the world outside forgets they exist. It can't last. She knows this. It is a dream, a strange, impossible interlude. The dream is shattered on a crisp, cold morning 2 weeks after his arrival. Adrian is stronger. He can stand now, albeit unsteadily. He has taken a few halting steps around the cabin. His movements stiff and painful, but he is moving. The fever is gone. The last of his wounds are closing. The color is returning to his eyes, the dull brass sharpening back into brilliant molten gold. The air between them has changed again. The comfortable silence has been replaced by a thrumming, electric tension. He is no longer just a patient. He is a male. A powerful, dominant male, regaining his strength in a confined space with a lone female, and her body, traitor that it is, recognizes this on a primal level she cannot control. The scent of hempine and musk and wild, clean predatorus a constant presence in her lungs. When he passes her, the heat from his body reaches out and licks at her skin. She is both terrified and thrilled. This morning, she decides they all need fresh air. She opens the door, letting the bright, cold sunlight spill into the cabin. The pup, ecstatic, bounds out onto the porch, rolling in a patch of sun and attacking a fallen leaf with a series of ferocious pounces. Sophia leans against the doorframe, a small, genuine smile touching her lips. It feels foreign on her face. She watches the pup, then her gaze drifts to Adrian. He has followed her to the door and stands beside her, his head high, his nostrils flaring as he drinks in the scent of the forest. He looks magnificent, almost whole again. A king surveying his domain. Her smile falters. He is a king, and she is nothing. The woman with the stained face. This has all been a fantasy. Soon he will be strong enough to leave. He will go back to his world of power and politics and perfection, and she will be left here, in the silence, with nothing but the echo of his presence. The thought is a cold, sharp pain, worse than any humiliation she has ever felt. A low growl rumbles in his chest, so low it is more of a vibration than a sound. Sophia tenses. She looks at him. He is not looking at the forest. He is staring past her, into the woods, his body rigid, the fur along his spine raised. His lips are drawn back from his teeth in a silent, deadly snarl. She follows his gaze, her heart dropping into the pit of her stomach. There, at the edge of the clearing, half hidden by the shadows of the firs, stands a man. He is not a shifter. She can tell by his posture, by the scent of him that the wind carries to her stale sweat and the cheap, cloying smell of a city. He is tall and thin, dressed in clothes that are ill-suited for the woods. It's Marcus, her ex-fiancé, the man who had left her not with a bang, but a whimper, a few weeks before the presentation ceremony. The man who had told her, with a pained, apologetic look, that he just couldn't spend the rest of his life with someone people would pity. What is he doing here? How did he find her? Sophia? He calls out, his voice thin and uncertain. He takes a tentative step forward. Sophia, is that you? I couldn't believe it when the old tracker told me you were living out here, all alone. Panic, cold and familiar, wraps its icy fingers around her throat. Her sanctuary has been invaded. Not by a wounded king this time, but by the ghost of a past she thought she had buried. Before she can think, before she can even form a word, Adrian moves. It is not the slow, painful movement of an invalid. It is an explosion of pure, lethal force, a black blur of speed and fury. He launches himself off the porch, covering the distance to the edge of the clearing in 2 massive bounds. He hits Marcus like a battering ram, a roar of incandescent rage tearing from his throat. Marcus screams, a high, thin sound of pure terror, as he is thrown backward, landing in a heap of tangled limbs. Adrian is on him in an instant, one massive paw planted on his chest, pinning him to the ground. Jaws that could snap a femur in half are open inches from Marcus's face, saliva dripping from black lips. The growl that rips from Adrian's chest is the sound of murder. No, the word is torn from Sophia's own throat. She runs, stumbling across the clearing, her mind screaming, Adrian, no! Stop! The pup, terrified by the violence, is yelping and crying on the porch. Adrian doesn't seem to hear her. His entire being is focused on the threat, on the man who dared to approach his what? His female? His caregiver? Please, she cries, reaching his side. She puts a hand on his back, on the thick, bristling fur. Don't! He's not a threat! Please, look at me! For a terrifying second, she thinks he will not listen, that the predator has completely taken over. But then, slowly, the killing pressure of his paw lessens. His head turns, just slightly, and his golden eyes, burning with rage, meet hers. He is still snarling, but there is a flicker of awareness in his gaze. He sees her. He can't be here, she says, her voice shaking. But you can't kill him. Please. For me, Marcus is sobbing beneath him, a pathetic, blubbering mess. Get it off me. God, Sophia, call it off. Adrian lets out one last, deep growl, a final warning that promises death if Marcus ever returns. Then, with a fluid grace that belies his size and recent injuries, he steps back. He stands over Marcus for a moment longer, a silent, menacing statue of black fur and barely leashed violence. Then he turns and stalks back to Sophia's side, pressing against her leg, a low rumble still vibrating in his chest. He is shielding her, protecting her. Marcus scrambles to his feet, crab-walking backward in the dirt, his eyes wide with terror. He looks from the wolf to Sophia, and a new expression dawns on his face. Confusion, disbelief, and then a dawning, ugly comprehension. You're with that? He sputters, gesturing a shaky hand at Adrian. A beast? That's what you've lowered yourself to? I came here to see if you were okay, to try again. And you're living in squalor with a monster? The words are meant to hurt, to shame her. And 5 years ago, they would have flayed her alive. But something has changed. Standing here, with the solid, warm weight of Adrian against her, with the memory of his ferocity on her behalf still singing in her veins, she feels not shame, but a white-hot, cleansing anger. She looks at Marcus, at his weak, handsome face, his perfectly curated clothes now stained with mud and fear. She looks at the pathetic man who abandoned her because he was afraid of what other people would think. Then she looks at the magnificent, terrifying creature beside her. The king who broke her, yes, but also the father who crawled through a storm to save his child, the patient who trusted her, the protector who just offered to kill for her. There is no comparison. "Get out," she says, her voice low and steady and cold as riverstone. "Get out, and don't ever come back." Marcus stares at her, his mouth agape. He is seeing a woman he does not recognize. The timid, wounded girl is gone. In her place is someone formidable. He doesn't need to be told twice. He turns and flees, crashing through the underbrush like a frightened deer, the sounds of his panicked retreat fading into the vast, indifferent silence of the forest. Sophia stands there, trembling in the aftermath, the adrenaline slowly draining away, leaving her weak-kneed. Adrian nudges her hand with his nose, a soft, questioning whine in his throat. She looks down at him. His golden eyes are filled with a fierce, possessive light. He has staked a claim. In front of the ghost of her past, he has declared her his, and the most terrifying part? She wanted him to. The confrontation with Marcus changes everything. The illusion of their peaceful cohabitation is gone, replaced by a raw, undeniable truth. They are not just patient and caregiver. They are male and female. A bond has been forged between them, tempered in fear and blood and quiet intimacy. Now, it has been tested by an outside threat, and it has held. It has hardened into something sharp and dangerous. The cabin, once a sanctuary, now feels like a pressure cooker. The air is thick with unspoken desire, with the terrifying, exhilarating pull between them. Adrian is almost fully healed. His movements are fluid and powerful again. He prowls the small space like a caged panther, his immense presence filling every corner. He watches her with an intensity that makes her skin prickle and her breath catch. She finds herself acutely aware of him in a way that is purely physical, the way his muscles shift beneath his fur when he moves. The deep, resonant timbre of his breathing as he sleeps, the scent of him, which seems to have woven itself into the very fabric of her clothes, her blankets, her hair. She is losing herself. The carefully constructed walls she built around her heart are crumbling, and she is terrified of what will be left in the rubble. One evening, a new danger arrives. Not a man, but something older, more primal, a grizzly, a massive, ancient male, drawn by the scent of her cooking, or perhaps by the territorial challenge of another large predator. It lumbers into the clearing, its small, black eyes fixed on the cabin. It is a mountain of muscle and fur, scarred and grizzled with age. It rises on its hind legs, sniffing the air, and lets out a deafening roar that shakes the windows in their frames. The pup, who had been playing on the porch, whimpers in terror and scrambles inside, hiding behind Sophia's legs. Adrian is at the door in a flash, his body a low, coiled spring of lethal intent. A growl rips from his chest, a sound so savage it makes the grizzly's roar seem tame. It is not a warning. It is a declaration of war. "No, Adrian, don't." Sophia breathes, her hand gripping his fur. He's not fully healed. That thing is a monster. But he doesn't listen. This is not about a pathetic human ex-boyfriend. This is a primal battle for territory, for dominance. For her, before she can stop him, he launches himself out the door. The two titans of the forest meet in the center of the clearing, with a sound like a thunderclap. It is a maelstrom of claws and teeth, of black fur and brown. They roll and tear at each other, the ground trembling with the force of their battle. The grizzly has weight and brute strength on its side, but Adrian has speed and a cold, calculating fury. Sophia watches in horror, her heart in her throat, the terrified pup pressed against her. This is not a fight Adrian can win. Not yet. He is strong, but the poison had taken too much from him. She can see him favoring his injured shoulder, his movements a fraction slower than they should be. The grizzly lands a savage blow, its long claws tearing through the newly healed flesh of Adrian's shoulder. He cries out, a sharp sound of pain, and stumbles. The bear seizes the advantage, rising over him, its massive jaws open, ready to deliver the killing bite to his neck. Time slows down. Sophia sees it all with a horrifying clarity. The setting sun glinting on the bear's yellowed teeth, the blood welling up from Adrian's shoulder, the look of grim acceptance in his golden eyes as he prepares to die, and in that instant, the last of her fear burns away, consumed by a love so fierce and absolute it feels like rage. No, the vow she made on her porch echoes in her soul. I will not be like them. I will not stand by and watch someone I care for be destroyed. She doesn't think. She acts. She shoves the pup back inside the cabin and snatches the heavy iron fireplace poker from its stand. It's a pathetic weapon against a creature like that, but it's all she has. Get away from him, she screams, her voice raw, and she runs straight at the bear. The grizzly, distracted for a split second by the noise, turns its massive head towards her. Its small eyes register her, a tiny, insignificant gnat. It dismisses her, turning back to the more immediate threat. That's when Adrian makes his move, taking advantage of the momentary distraction. He lunges upward, sinking his teeth into the bear's soft underbelly. The grizzly roars in agony and rage, shaking him like a rag doll, but the damage is done. Adrian is thrown aside, landing in a heap. He tries to rise, but his legs give way. He is spent. The bear, enraged and wounded, turns its full murderous attention on him. Sophia doesn't hesitate. As the bear lunges for the downed wolf, she throws herself forward. She puts her own body between the monster and Adrian, shielding his head and neck with her back. She raises the poker, a futile gesture of defiance. She closes her eyes, bracing for the impact. She smells the foul, hot breath of the bear. She feels the ground shake as it charges. This is it. A stupid, selfless, final act. For him. A searing, white-hot pain explodes across her back as the bear's claws connect. It rips through her jacket, through her skin, through muscle. She screams, a sound of pure agony. But in the same instant, another force erupts. It is not pain. It is light. A blinding silver-white light bursts from her face, from the birthmark she has spent her life hating and hiding. The crimson and purple stain, the rose map, ignites. It is no longer a blemish. It is a conduit of impossible power. Intricate, glowing patterns of silver filigree flash across her skin, a searing, beautiful sigil of pure energy. The light slams into the charging grizzly, like a physical wall. The bear is thrown backward, howling in shock and pain, its fur smoking where the light touched it. It scrambles to its feet, and with one last look of terror at the glowing woman, it turns and flees into the forest, crashing through the trees in a blind panic. The light fades, but the transformation remains. Sophia collapses, the pain in her back overwhelming her. She falls beside Adrian, her vision swimming. The last thing she sees before the darkness takes her are his eyes. Wide, with shock, with awe, with dawning, horrified recognition. And then she sees the space where the great black wolf was lying begin to shimmer, to distort. Bones crack and reform. Fur recedes. The form of the wolf melts away, replaced by the long, lean limbs of a man. A naked, powerfully built man, with skin still shimmering from the shift. A man with haunted, molten gold eyes, and a face that could break hearts. King Adrian. He crawls to her, his own grievous wounds forgotten. He gathers her into his arms, his touch impossibly gentle. "Sophia," he breathes, his voice rough, broken, human. "God, Sophia!" What have I done? He looks at her face, at the beautiful, intricate silver tracery that now adorns her skin where the ugly mark had been. He touches it with a trembling finger, his expression one of utter devastation. My mate, he whispers, the words a confession and a prayer. My true mate. And as Sophia slips into unconsciousness, his words echo in the ruins of her mind. Mate. The world falls away, leaving only the shocking, impossible truth. She wakes up in her own bed. The scent of antiseptic and clean linen fills her nose. Sunlight, soft and hazy, streams through the window. For a moment, she is disoriented, her mind a fog. Then it all comes rushing back. The bear, the pain, the light. The wolf becoming a man. Mate. She sits up with a gasp, a sharp stabbing pain in her back making her cry out. She feels a thick bandage wrapped around her torso. Easy, a voice says. A deep, rich, human voice that she has only heard once before, in a hall filled with judgment. Now, it is laced with a gut-wrenching tenderness. She turns her head. He is sitting in the chair by her bed. Adrian, the king. He is dressed in a pair of her grandfather's old trousers, which are far too short for him, and one of her grandfather's flannel shirts, which strains across the broad expanse of his shoulders. He looks absurd and magnificent all at once. His face is a mask of exhaustion and self-loathing. There are dark circles under his golden eyes. He has cleaned and stitched his own wounds. She can see the neat black thread against his skin on his shoulder. You're, she whispers, her voice a dry rasp. Human. He finishes for her, his voice rough. Yes, the shock of what you did, the power, it broke the hold of the poison. It gave me the strength to shift. He can't look at her. His gaze is fixed on his own hands, which are clasped tightly between his knees. My back, she says, trying to understand. The bear's claws were laced with the same filth as the weapons of the rogues who attacked me, he says, his voice tight. A slow-acting neurotoxin, designed to cripple, then kill. I cleaned the wounds as best I could while you were unconscious. You saved my life. Again, she processes this. The poison, that's why he wasn't healing properly. That's why he was so weak. And my face, she says, her hand rising to her cheek. She can feel the skin, but it feels different, smooth. There's a faint, pleasant warmth to it. She needs a mirror. It's a mark of the old magic, he says, his voice barely a whisper. A sign of a direct lunar bloodline. We thought they were all gone. It only manifests, only awakens, when the bearer performs an act of ultimate sacrifice for their destined mate. He finally looks at her, his eyes swimming with a pain that eclipses his own physical injuries. It is not a stain, Sophia. It is the mark of a queen. The words hang in the air between them. Queen, mate, destined. It's too much. Her mind rebels against it. You rejected me, she says, the words flat, devoid of the anger and pain that should be there. She is too numb for that. You called me a blight. He flinches as if she has struck him. I know. He looks down again, shame bowing his proud shoulders. I was a fool, a blind, arrogant fool. My father was killed by a betrayal born of a mismatched mating. He mated for politics, not for the bond. The she-wolf, who was his true mate, went mad with grief and tried to kill my mother. I grew up wary. I convinced myself the fated bond was a weakness, a myth that led to ruin. I valued purity, strength, perfection, all the wrong things. He finally meets her eyes again, and the self-hatred in them is a raw, open wound. When I saw you, when I saw the mark, I felt the pull, the first flicker of the bond. It terrified me. And you were not what I had built up in my mind as perfect. Your mark, to my idiotic, frightened eyes, seemed like a flaw, an imperfection, so I lashed out. I pushed you away in the cruelest way I could imagine. It was an act of cowardice, Sophia, and it has haunted me every day, for 5 years. He takes a shaky breath. I never stopped thinking about you. I tried to find you, but you vanished. I told myself it was for the best. And then the rogues attacked. They were after my son, Ethan. My Matthias' mother died in childbirth a year ago. Ethan is all I have. I was running, trying to lead them away from the packlands, and I just ran. My wolf knew where to go. He was seeking the other half of his soul. He was seeking you. Her head is spinning. The pup, Ethan, his son. The bedroom door creaks open, and the little pup, Ethan, trots in. He comes to the side of the bed and whines softly, nudging her hanging hand with his wet nose. Adrian's story, his confession, it's all just words. But the sight of the pup, the feel of his small, warm body, that is real. She cared for him. She protected him. She would have died for his father. I am your mate, Sophia, Adrian says, his voice thick with unshed tears. And I have done nothing but hurt you. I don't deserve you. I don't deserve your forgiveness. You should hate me. And that's the crux of it, isn't it? She should hate him. Every broken piece of her should scream with rage. The girl who was humiliated in the great hall should want to see him suffer. But she isn't that girl anymore. That girl didn't know the feeling of his fur under her hands, or the sound of his pained breathing in the dark. That girl didn't know the fierce paternal love in his eyes when he looked at his son. That girl didn't know the solid, protective weight of him at her side. She has spent 2 weeks with the wolf, not the king, and she has fallen in love with the wolf. You're right, she says, her voice quiet but clear. I should hate you. He closes his eyes, bracing himself for the blow. But I don't, she continues, and his eyes snap open. I don't know what this mate bond is. I don't understand any of this. But I know that when I saw that bear about to kill you, the only thing I felt was that I couldn't live in a world without you in it. It is her own confession. Raw, unplanned, and utterly true. Adrian makes a choked sound, a sob of disbelief and relief. He wants to reach for her. She can see it in every line of his body, but he holds himself back. He is giving her the power, the choice. I'm broken, Adrian, she whispers, a single tear tracing a path down her unmarked cheek. You broke me. And then you put me back together again. But the pieces are all different now. Let me help you, he pleads, his voice cracking. Let me spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Let me honor you. Let me love you, the way I should have from the very beginning. Ethan, as if sensing the shift in the room, the fragile hope, chooses that moment to try and clamber up onto the bed. He is clumsy, his back legs scrambling against the blankets. Adrian moves automatically, his large, gentle hands helping the pup, lifting him onto the bed. Ethan immediately crawls over to Sophia, curling up in the hollow of her waist, letting out a contented sigh. The simple domestic act shatters the last of her defenses. This is it. This is what she has been searching for, without ever knowing it. Not solitude, not safety, belonging. She looks at Adrian, at this beautiful broken king who is offering her his heart. She looks at the pup, his son, who has burrowed his way into hers. She raises a trembling hand and touches the silver marks on her face. They feel like a part of her, a symbol not of shame, but of strength, of love. Okay, she whispers. It is just one word, but it holds everything. Forgiveness, acceptance, a beginning. Adrian's face crumples, and this time he doesn't hold back. He surges forward, not to kiss her, but to gently press his forehead against hers. He closes his eyes, and she feels the tension, the pain, the years of regret, simply melt out of him. Thank you. He breathes against her skin. My queen. And for the first time, the title doesn't feel like a lie. It feels like destiny. A new routine establishes itself, one of healing and tentative discovery. Adrian is no longer a wolf she cares for, but a man she is learning to know. He is a surprisingly gentle patient and an even more gentle partner. He tends to the wound on her back with a reverence that makes her skin burn. He cooks for her, simple meals he pieces together from her pantry, his large hands surprisingly deft. He tells her stories about his life, about his pack, about the son he adores. He never pushes her. He sleeps in the chair by her bed, even when she tells him he can take the bed and she will take the sofa. I don't deserve your comfort, he says simply, but I can't bear to be far from you. Sophia finds her own voice again. She tells him about her grandfather, about her love for the forest, about the lonely years. She doesn't shy away from the pain of his rejection, but she speaks of it as a past event, a scar, not a fresh wound. Talking about it with him, the source of it, is a strange and powerful catharsis. Ethan is the glue that holds them together. He is a whirlwind of puppy energy, and with his father now in human form, he is even more of a handful. He seems to instinctively understand that Sophia is now the center of his father's world, and therefore his own. He divides his time between them, sleeping at the foot of her bed, chewing on Adrian's boots, and demanding that they both play with him in the sun-drenched clearing. One afternoon, about a week after the transformation, Sophia is feeling strong enough to walk down to the river. Adrian is at her side in an instant, his arm hovering near her back, ready to catch her if she stumbles. The wound is healing well, a testament to his careful tending, but it still pulls and aches. They stand on the bank, the water rushing over the smooth stones. The air is clean and cold. I need to go back, he says quietly, not looking at her. My pack will be in turmoil. They think I'm dead. I need to restore order. I need to deal with the traitors who sided with the rogues. A cold knot of fear tightens in Sophia's stomach. She knew this was coming. The fantasy had to end. Of course, she says, her voice carefully neutral. I want you to come with me, he says, turning to her, his golden eyes blazing with sincerity. You and Ethan, come home. With me. To your world? She asks, a bitter taste in her mouth. To the people who watched you humiliate me? To the place where I am a symbol of shame? No, he says fiercely. You are a symbol of my greatest failure, and my only redemption. You will be my queen, Sophia, not just my mate, my Luna. They will honor you, or they will answer to me. But more than that, he says, his voice softening, they will see you. They will see your strength, your compassion. They will see the mark of the lunar bloodline on your face, and they will know you are more royal than any of them. He takes her hands in his. I know I'm asking the impossible, to go back to the place that hurt you, but I cannot, will not, leave you again. My world is wherever you are. I hope you will let me make my home, your home too. She looks at their joined hands, his, large, scarred, and powerful, hers, slender and pale. They fit together perfectly. She thinks of the silent, empty cabin. She thinks of a life listening to the sorrowful song of the wind. Then she thinks of Adrian's low laughter and the feel of Ethan's soft fur against her cheek. The choice is not a choice at all. What about him? She asks, nodding towards the cabin where Ethan is napping. He's still a pup. A slow smile spreads across Adrian's face, transforming his harsh features into something breathtakingly handsome. He is almost old enough for his first shift. A few more weeks, but we can travel. Slowly. He hesitates. Then his smile fades into something more vulnerable. Is that a yes? She takes a deep breath of the cold, clean air. She is no longer the girl who runs away. She is the woman who runs towards the fight the woman who shields her own. Yes, she says. His answering smile is like the sun breaking through the clouds. He doesn't crush her in an embrace. He lifts her hand to his lips and kisses her knuckles, a gesture of fealty, of profound respect. Then, finally, he leans in and kisses her. It is not a kiss of frantic passion, but of deep, soul-shattering tenderness. It is a promise. It is an apology. It is a homecoming. It tastes of forgiveness and pine-scented air, and the faint, salty trace of her own tears. In that kiss, the last broken piece of her heart finds its place, and she is whole. 6 months later, the great hall is filled to bursting. The air is thick, not with nervous perfume, but with the scent of roasted meats, pine boughs, and the joyous, vibrant energy of a pack celebrating. It is the night of the winter solstice, the Alpha King's formal mating ceremony. Sophia stands on the dais beside Adrian's throne, not below it. She is not wearing a simple dress, but the ceremonial armor of a Luna queen, all gleaming silver and dark, supple leather. It is both beautiful and functional. A statement. Her hair is woven with silver threads that catch the torchlight, and on her face, the mark is a thing of stunning, ethereal beauty. The intricate silver patterns seem to glow with a soft internal light, a living testament to her power and her lineage. No one looks at it with pity or disgust. They look at it with awe. Adrian stands beside her, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. He is in his full alpha regalia, but his eyes are only for her. The adoration, the fierce pride in his gaze, is a constant warm presence at her side. At their feet, on a pile of soft furs, a young boy with unruly black hair and familiar golden eyes is playing with a carved wooden wolf. Ethan made his first shift a month ago, a clumsy, adorable affair that ended with him stuck halfway. Much to his own frustration and his parents' amusement, Sophia looks out over the sea of faces. She sees the members of the High Council, who stood by and let her be shamed. She sees the she-wolves, who snickered at her. They are all looking at her now, their expressions a mixture of disbelief, respect, and no small amount of fear. She had not returned as a timid victim seeking revenge. She had returned as their queen. Her quiet strength, her unyielding compassion, and the undeniable power that radiated from her had won them over more effectively than any show of force from Adrian. She healed the rifts in the pack that his coldness had created. She was the heart he had been missing. Her gaze lands on a woman standing in the shadows at the edge of the hall. A beautiful she-wolf with cruel eyes, who had been the loudest of her mockers, the one who had been sure she would be Adrian's choice. The woman looks away, unable to meet Sophia's steady gaze. There is no triumph in Sophia, only a quiet pity. A movement at the main entrance draws her attention. A man is being politely, but firmly turned away by the royal guards. He is dressed in fine, new clothes, but he looks haggard, desperate. It's Marcus. He must have heard of the royal mating. He must have come to see for himself. He looks up, and for a moment, his eyes meet Sophia's across the vast, crowded hall. She sees the desperate regret in his face, the dawning horror of what he threw away. She doesn't feel anger. She doesn't feel anything at all. He is a ghost, a footnote in a story that is no longer about him. She gives a subtle, almost imperceptible shake of her head to the guard. Let him watch. Let him see. Then she turns her back on him, on her past, and faces her present. She faces Adrian. He leans down, his lips brushing her ear. "Are you happy, my love?" He murmurs, his voice for her alone. She looks at him, this king, who had been her monster, and became her salvation. She looks at their son, a perfect blend of them both. She feels the warmth of the hall, the thrum of her pack, her family. She touches the mark on her face, no longer a stain, but a crown, her perceived weakness, her compassion, had been her greatest strength all along. It had saved him. It had saved them both. It had forged a family from the ashes of their broken pieces. She rises on her toes and presses a soft kiss to his lips, a public display of affection that sends a murmur of approval through the hall. "I'm home," she whispers, and it is the truest thing she has ever said.